All right, we'll start the live stream. All right, welcome everybody today. Welcome to everybody joining us on the live stream for this Infrastructure and Growth Committee meeting as of the 3rd of February 2026. This is our first one for the year, which is very exciting. So welcome everybody that I can see there in the public gallery as well. Our first thing up on the agenda this afternoon is to receive our apologies, and I've received one from Councillor Boyle. Other than that, we have our full complement, so if I could have a mover for that, please. Councillor Ludlow, and seconder, Councillor De Vries. All those in favour? We have any direct declarations of interest this afternoon? Councillor De Vries.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a conflict with agenda item 6 as a trustee of Active Southland who have made the application on that agenda item.
Excellent. So that is the road closure for Surf to City, so we can note that when we get to tab 6. Alrighty, then we also have two items this afternoon in public forum. The first one being Ms. Christine Simpson, the Deputy Principal, and Mr. Mike Newell, the Principal of James Hargest College. Please come up and take a seat. And Jeremy Rees, just in time.
Kia ora koutou. Oh, sorry.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I take it that everyone has received the submission. So, look, obviously I'm not going to go through that blow for blow, but I guess to reiterate some key points, we do have grave concerns about our students' safety, but also safety of students from other schools, because it is not just our schools that use that pedestrian crossing that we're talking about on Queen's Drive. There are about 9 or 10 buses every morning that pull up at the bus stops there, so a lot of Boys High students cross that in the morning. And what we're seeing now is speed being a factor. We're seeing more distracted driving, people just getting more frustrated at having to stop, and you've got the added distraction of the buses in the morning. We have numerous school events where our students will go out during the day, whether that's for the cross country, heading down to the bush in the park to do some EOTC, and those 4 lanes are just frankly quite dangerous. We believe there is precedent around the city too. When we think further up Queen's Drive, outside Boys High, we've got similar crossings outside Sacred Heart, St John's, and unfortunately there was one put in at Girls High following a pedestrian fatality there as well, and we do not want to be in that situation. We have tried going to council previously. We understand it's purely fiscal, so I guess we are really pleading with something that can be done for the safety of our kids. That's really all I've got to say, but I'll pass on to Ms Simpson. Thank you.
So we received some feedback from our school community, and the grave concerns that they shared were things like Mr Newell has already talked about, the 4 lanes of traffic, not an ideal situation. More specifically, 1 lane will stop, the other one will drive straight through. That is a big concern. The downward slope from the Queen's Drive roundabout is just escalating speed. People come out of Duke Street and they seem to think that escalating out of that intersection is a good idea, and unfortunately our crossing is just there in their path. So a lot of the community talked about that. They talked about the distraction, drivers on the phones. One of our teachers, who is on our road patrol duty every single day, she said it feels like Russian roulette. It's not a matter of if, but when someone is going to hit one of our students. Or one of the parents pushing a pram because of the Lee Street kindy that's just around the corner that utilises that crossing as well. We have a grave fear, like Mr Newell said, that somebody is going to seriously get hurt at that crossing. We've got a couple of New Zealand police constables that are in full support of this submission. Most recently, Constable Rosie Marchant has said, "I'm hoping that there will be a positive outcome for us due to the huge traffic flow outside James Hargest Junior Campus before and after school." We've tried many initiatives to try and reduce the unsafe driver behaviour. We have asked our parent community to volunteer as helpers on road patrol duty, which some parents have done, which has been really good. We've also had retraining several times throughout the year for our student patrol groups. And we've also asked the local police to come and hang out around that crossing. Sadly, the only initiative that has any effect is the uniformed police car sitting on the side of the road. And as you can imagine, that can't happen every day. So we are pleading, really, that we do some initiative to really make an impact and a difference to help increase the safety of all of the pedestrians who use that crossing, and we deem that the pedestrian signalled crossing will be the best solution. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything as well, Mr. Rees?
Yeah, sorry, I was just on time. Just echoing Mr. Newell's comments there, really. Sorry, I'm a Board of Trustees member here rather than anything else. And really hoping that it's only a question of money and the funding for it rather than any merit for it. And I think the merit for the crossing is hopefully well established, and that the engineering behind it's well understood, and now it's just a matter of funding it. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. As a parent of James Hargest College student, James Hargest College student, I have an interest, but it is in no way pecuniary. So, as Ms. Simpson said, I've been one of those parents that have helped out with road patrol once or twice, and it is, like you've said, very precarious. It's not if, but when. Does our committee have any questions? Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I went down this morning at 8:20 and stood there on that crossing until 8:45, and it was a real education. I do have a question at the end of this, but I'd like to say there was a ute towing a horse float coming from the north, had to brake in an emergency fashion because they didn't realise there was a crossing there, and the screech was quite loud. It is Russian roulette, totally agree with you there, and fully support immediate remedial action. There's no other choice. The question I have is on your other pedestrian crossing on the Layard Street one, and this is one that I use frequently because I live in Terrace Street. On the south side, the property that the pedestrian crossing actually adjoins, the trees are overhanging and creates a very sharp, dark shaded spot, and I find it difficult to see people queuing up there. On the other side, it's all bright and open, but these trees are overhanging and are a real distraction. So I just want to have you, is that something you've noticed, or as a driver, I find it quite worrying?
You'll also find that there is a neighbour who parks their caravan on the side of the road as well.
Doesn't help.
Right, yeah, just on the eastern side of that crossing. We've not noticed that to the degree where we've needed to take action on that. However, we did notice that when we were walking around with Grant Fisher on the Queen's Drive Road, and as a school we organised to have all of the trees culled right back, or pruned right back to our fence line, as one of the initiatives to help the visibility along Queen's Drive. So that's something we have done on our school grounds to help mitigate that, but not the Layard Street. Yeah.
As a driver, I do notice it, especially in the morning when the shade, you get extreme shade from the sun. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Ludlow.
There's a question, but there's a brief, I'll preface it. As a resident of Queen's Drive, it's disturbing to hear about incidents like a vehicle towing a horse float, but to get to that point coming from the north, they've already gone past school buses and should have been travelling at 30 kilometres per hour anyway, past the bus, or 20 k's past the buses. And my observation was that I'd slow down and still be passed by traffic on the internal lane because they thought those speed limits didn't apply to them. So the question is, what do we need to do to get the potential for having these lights put onto the work program for 26-27? I guess Mr. Pearson gets that one.
Mr. Pearson, and welcome back.
Thank you, Chair. We have what we would describe as a low-cost, low-risk work category from New Zealand Transport Agency, which we bid for every 3 years. And in this last 3-year period, that has been changed quite dramatically across the funding that's been allocated, and some form of signalisation in that area has been considered in the past. So we will be bidding again for monies coming for the 27-30 period in the next 6 to 9 months, and that certainly could be an opportunity, but that still has to go through an NZTA process. So Council has two options: to either fund it fully or seek subsidised funding.
So follow-up question, if we charge down the fund it fully because it may be that we accept that this is a real risk, what's the cost, approximately? If you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not sure on the detail, and there will be a range of things we'll need to think through that I'm not sure how far the team has got to actually funding that project.
Ask if that comes back to the committee, please.
Yes, we'll note that. Thank you, Councillor Ludlow. Councillor Bond.
Thank you for attending today and bringing your submission forward. I noted in your verbal presentation that the preference is for a signatised pedestrian crossing, and I wondered, have you thought about the alternative of a speed cushioning calming device which would slow down vehicles but not affect buses outside that area? I too had children using those crossings and know that they are really dangerous, and the safety fear is real. So just wondering, why did you decide to go with the signalised pedestrian crossing and not look at the speed cushioning calming devices that can be just as effective?
Well, my answer to that would be because a light will make people have to stop as opposed to slow down. Yeah.
And just, sorry if I may, for Russell, can we look at that option potentially as well? Bringing some sort of like Councillor Ludlow asked for?
The Chair, we certainly would bring back an options paper which would consider all of those. I think it's worth considering. I know that in other places that many places up until recently have been using speed cushioning with either signals and or pedestrian crossings. So we do need to consider that as part of a wider consideration before we would want to proceed.
Perfect.
As you can imagine, this is a very real problem, but it is not also the only road safety issue that surrounds our Invercargill schools. So the remaining funding that we did have when we lost the other 50% funding by Waka Kotahi, that only leaves that 50% remainder that we've got there to fund, which means that the timeline that we had for road safety improvements is now, 100% longer than it would have been, or 50% longer than it would have been if we were to be able to have the funding on board from them as well. So we will get a report back for you, or for us, and be able to see when we could fit that in the timeline. Councillor Dermody?
Yeah, it's a question actually probably for the Chair, Russell. Thanks firstly for your presentation, and I agree with the need. What's the likely time frame around paper to decision to implementation, do we think? Like, how long will this need sit there without being tended to?
Through your Chair, I'd like to talk to the team, but it's possibly either March or April. It's not I think there's a whole lot of thought already gone into this, so we have a reasonably good understanding of some options, but that's not a long...
So that's work started, or that's decision made?
That's a report back to Council to set some direction to. At the moment, there is no funding approved for it, so we would need to consider where that would be in the wider road safety program.
So realistically, everything going well, could it be finished by this year, this calendar year? Whatever we do, it'll be done by then?
Through the Chair, I think it would be a stretch to be done before the calendar year if everything was lined up and funding was available, but these things take a little bit of design time, but that becomes a priority.
Councillor Lush.
Thanks for your presentation, and I agree that it needs to be signalised. Do you think that's enough? Do you think there needs to be some sort of speed limit there as well? I mean, it seems to be a two-lane road going each way with schools and things on it. Do you think that the signalised crossing will solve your problems, or do you think it's a wait-and-see case?
I think that would be a start, but anything additional to that is probably going to incur extra costs in some way, whether it's signage, because I don't know if we necessarily want to compromise traffic flow 24/7. I think it's those key bits when school is operational, when we're open for instruction. So I'm unsure whether it would be enough, but it would certainly be a start. I agree with the comments that have been made around the speed limits past buses, because they're just not adhered to. We've got some good signage up down at the senior campus that flashes, at certain times. They're all good visibility. I mean, we've only mentioned one crossing, but I do the crossing every day up at the senior campus, and there's a wider area around driver behaviour in terms of what a yellow line means and all sorts. So.
It seems like we're funneling traffic past high schools, don't we? It's a 4-lane road past school, and people are crossing all time across that. It's not just, people are leaving for all sorts of other reasons as well. It is a busy crossing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Lush. Were there any further questions? No? Well, thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us this afternoon. I think it's very clear that you can see the feel in the room is that there's a critical issue there. Well, we'll get a report back and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.
Now we would like to welcome up the South Alive Rangatahi to talk to us through their presentation on the improving bus stops in our city. Floor is yours.
Ahi ahi mari e tātou, tuatahi tēnei te mihi ki a koutou. Thank you guys for having us here today to present to you. I'm Maia Kaido, he uri a hau no Kaitahu me Ngāpuhi. I'm a third year social anthropology student at Massey University.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Ash MacDonald and I am the head girl of Aurora College.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Kira Rees. I am former head student of Aurora College and former youth counsellor.
We have a wee presentation. Councillors, you'll have that in your papers, but do we have it online here? Excellent. Everyone can see that? And Michelle will just bring you the clicker.
Before we share where we've landed with our project, we wanted to give a bit of a background as to how this all started. Through Te Rauroa One Aotearoa Foundation's work with rangatahi and community organisations in Invercargill, transport kept coming up as a real barrier to participation. Among those barriers was how safe we feel, whether the system is welcoming, and whether we can rely on it to get where we need to go. Te Rauroa chose to look more closely at the transport experience. They started the Breaking Barriers transport research, connecting with organisations who spoke with young people directly and found many of us shared similar challenges. Public transport not feeling reliable, not always feeling safe or comfortable, and sometimes feeling like the system wasn't really designed with young people in mind. We were also asked what would make things better. Those insights were then carried to co-design sessions with young people, community leaders, service providers, and adults who genuinely wanted to listen to them. One of the themes that came through was actually pretty simple: bus stops. For many young people, the bus stop is where the stress starts, before the bus even arrives. A lot of stops feel unsafe, exposed to weather, poorly lit, uncomfortable, or just not designed for the people who actually use them. Improving bus stops became a practical, realistic solution that could genuinely make a difference without needing to redesign the entire transport system. South Alive opted to lead the solution. They brought together a group of us, local rangatahi, to look specifically at what better bus stops could look like in our neighbourhoods. We mapped the stops we use, talked about which ones felt unsafe or uncomfortable, and identified features that would actually help us. Things like shelter, lighting, visibility, seating, and how each stop fits into wider streets around it. Throughout this process, the focus stayed on real, achievable changes, the things that would actually improve daily life for the people who rely on public transport. What we're going to share with you next comes directly from the experiences of young people, and we hope it helps Council understand not just what we feel needs to happen, but why these small changes really matter.
So firstly, looking at the appearance of the bus stops, many of the bus stops in South Invercargill are currently in a visible state of neglect. Graffiti, rusted metal, broken glass, and missing or damaged shelters are common. This not only defeats the basic purpose of a sheltered bus stop, but it also quietly reinforces negative stereotypes, particularly the idea that bus users are primarily from lower decile socioeconomic backgrounds and therefore less deserving of quality infrastructure. Bus stops are essential public infrastructure, yet their condition communicates neglect and lack of investment, especially towards vulnerable users such as rangatahi, older people, and those with limited mobility. So while bus stops may seem minor within the wider transport system, improving them is highly visible and a practical way for Council to demonstrate equity, pride, and care in a public space. How we maintain these spaces reflects who we believe public transport is for and who we are willing to invest in.
Here we can see pretty clear examples of said stops. Specifically the one on the furthest left, that is the stop by Splash Palace. As we can see, there is absolutely no shelter there, and that is quite a common stop. It's actually used for multiple buses, not just the Kingswell, but also the Newfield. And there's no shelter, nothing. A lot of the insights... yeah, it's just not at the standards it needs to be. Following on to the second one, that is a school bus stop for the children that leave Aurora College when they go home on the Kingswell bus loop. There is, again, same problems, no shelter, bad weather, anything like that, you're just going through it. And as well as with the visibility of the timetables and poles, a lot of them you just can't see the times. It doesn't tell you the time that it comes to the actual bus stop, and it only tells you when the bus leaves the bus hub at the start of the day, when it comes back, and how often those loops happen. And one thing we've really tried to do is sort of imagine what our bus stops could look like. So here are some examples of what we want for these stops. We want them to be dry and sheltered. We want Wi-Fi, it'd be preferred because it says that there's Wi-Fi on the buses. It says the buses are going to say that there's Wi-Fi on there and there's not. We want them to be safe, and we don't want people to feel like they are lower class by being on that bus, feel like the buses actually are being cared for and aren't just like, because that also is part of the reason people feel like they're not, people can feel less than when they have to go up to a stop that is dirty and unkept. And lastly, reliable. You know, a lot of the stops don't come on time. They either come early, they come late, or you'll be signalling for a driver and the driver just will drive past you. They won't see you because they're not visible enough. And please continue to the next slide. And here are some options we have thought of together as ways to improve. We could start by adding lighting to the stops, making them visible during the darker days during winter. Painting the poles bright colours so that the bus drivers can see them. Using either permanent umbrellas or just any sort of shelter. We need a proper shelter. And one way that could stop from graffiti or the tear down of said shelters is having these wrapped with art. Now, this could be done by people in the community, local artists. This could be done by the schools in the area. This could be done by anyone. But it is shown that when there is murals on something, it is far less likely to get graffitied and torn down and weared out, and people actually care for it. They like it. They like seeing something that looks cool, is coming from where they're from, and just generally good.
So we propose a trial across 2 bus stops in South Invercargill, one with a shelter and one with a pole. These stops were selected based on lived experience and collective observation. So this approach allows us to test improvements at different scales while demonstrating the benefits of thoughtful design and maintenance across varied infrastructure. Piloting these changes enables Council to gather real evidence and community feedback, which can then inform future upgrades across South Invercargill and beyond. Looking at its maintenance and sustainability. Visible upgrades alone are not enough. These trials will require ongoing maintenance to ensure their impact is sustained. Pride in public space is not just improvements, but it's about maintaining them, valuing them, and refusing to return to a state of neglect over time. Long-term care ensures that this initiative does not become temporary or symbolic, but instead reflects a continued commitment to doing better for our communities. To bring this vision to life, funding is required. And while this pitch seeks directly to the funding available for this kaupapa, the underlying vision should sit among Council's broader priorities. Investing in these bus stops is more than a minor upgrade. It's a tangible way to demonstrate trust in youth-led innovation and to take meaningful action that benefits the wider community. By prioritising funding, Council has the opportunity to show that it values equitable access to public transport, recognises the insights of rangatahi, and is willing to support practical solutions proposed by those who directly engage with the system. This is also an investment in long-term community well-being. Improved bus stops can encourage greater public transport use, reduce reliance on private vehicles, and challenge the socio-economic stigma often associated with the bus. Treating this project as a priority signals a commitment to inclusive, forward-thinking infrastructure where safety, accessibility, and pride in public spaces are not optional but are standard. If this vision is realised, it will encourage greater public transport use among rangatahi in the wider community, reduce socio-economic stigma associated with bus use, demonstrate equitable investment in all citizens, show that we value those who rely on public transport, and signal trust and support for youth-led initiatives. So ultimately, this project is about dignity, visibility, safety and care, and about what kind of city we choose to be. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So kia ora koutou, thank you guys so much for having us here.
Thank you so much for your presentation and all your hard mahi that's gone into this. I know it's been quite a few months that everybody's been working on it, and it's really, really cool to get to this point now where you're sitting here presenting to us. The point around, in particular, around the art on the bus stops. When I was a kid, went to Clifton School, and we got to paint one of the bus stops up, what used to be there. I'm not sure if it is now anymore, but we got to paint one of them, and it was a undersea water theme, and everybody got to paint their face on the side of it. And because of that, we had such a point and pride, was never graffitied, and everyone felt like that they had their own piece in the neighbourhood. So I can totally relate to that piece. Does anyone have any questions for our panel? Councillor Dermody.
Yeah, well, comment firstly, yeah, thanks for your presentation. I think particularly your page on your sort of, where you've got your, that one, it really summarises what we're trying to look for in a public transport system around safe, dry, connected, reliable and cared for. So well done. It's the best summation of a public transport system I've seen. And probably a lot of consultants have paid a whole lot more money, have done a worse job. What I'm left with though is probably, and you've talked to it around a theme which I surmise is build it and they will come. My challenge or question back is, will they? And is a bus system the best form of public transport in the modern sort of society? I think it can work very well, you know, in for your schools and those sorts of things, but you think about weekends, you think about bespoke way people want to travel around cities and those sorts of things. There's a bus system, and if we did invest like this, would they actually come, or would we still not be catering for the need in the right way, is probably the question I've got. Have you got any thoughts or insights, or can we engage you to do another study on that?
People often feel that, well, have you heard that people say Invercargill's not moving with the times?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we look at Auckland or Wellington or even internationally, it's so common for people to use that day to day. And personally, I don't use the buses down here currently,
Yeah.
but I would. It just feels that at the moment, we're not moving with the times.
In terms of investing and making them, upgrading the
Yeah,
the
upgrading
seats,
them, but it's just removing that stigma as well. That's
Yeah, I agree. It's a good.
pulling one back and pushing one forward, yeah.
What about other forms of public transport, if there are any?
Like Uber and taxi? Is that what you're
Well,
talking
I don't
about?
know. How do
Like-
youth want to travel? I suppose is my question to you. When they're not, doing it for school, because there's a very standardised, got to be at the bus stop at 8 and got to be at school at 8:30 type thing. But when they want to travel on the weekends and the evenings and holidays, which is more informal, what's the best mode of transport? Is it still the bus system, do you feel? Or are there other forms?
I think it's still the buses. If you look at like Rangatahi Zone and Bluff, that's how groups of kids get out there, and they willingly do that.
Yeah.
But the issue is with the bus routes not existing to Otara and to Bluff beyond school. So I definitely think,
Yeah,
Yeah.
buses can work if they work
Yeah.
right. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Bond?
Thank you. Enjoyed your presentation and the work that you've put into this to delivering it to us today. What would you think, given what you've presented to us, is the number one thing that is a turn-off for people to use the bus services? Is it just simply the state of the bus shelters themselves, or is it the untimeliness on the schedule? Is it accessibility to and from and around the city? After all the work you've done, what would you say would be the number one thing that is a turn-off to people using our bus stops?
Well, I would say shelter, first off. I mean, like, as I mentioned when we were looking at the poll, the bus stop poll, when Aurora kids go home on the Kingswell bus, there's no shelter there, and that bus doesn't come till 3:30 if it comes on time, which most of the time it came late as someone who took that bus every day last year. During the hail, during the rain, we had to stand there. There wasn't trees to cover us, and when there was, well, how are you going to fit 20 students under one tree? We need shelter. That is the most important part for everyone. And we also can't be expected to turn up to school and have to wait in stops without shelter before we get on the bus, and then come into school drenched because where we were waiting for the bus was raining and just not okay at all.
I just
Follow-up
add-
question from Councillor Bond and then Councillor Lash, but feel free to...
Can I just
Go,
add on
Kira.
to that? I think also from our initial, like when we first started this project, and something that I relate to personally is we just don't really know how the buses work, and they're really hard to tell the timetables and everything. And I've found that personally when I'm in other cities and I've got friends or people who know how to use the buses, I would just follow along with them and it would be great and I knew what I was doing. But down here, even now, I probably couldn't just catch the bus without having to do a lot of research or have to call a friend who knows how to do it. It's just not knowing how to use them. So I feel like if we made them more, clear to understand and also just more inviting, that's kind of will make it easier for everyone to understand and want to use the buses.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question on Councillor Bond?
Yes, I did, through you, Chair. Russell, we've been approached today to endorse 2 trial stops, 1 shelter and 1 pole. How do you see this progressing forward in terms of ability, capacity and next?
Through the Chair, I think there's clearly an opportunity to work with our passenger transport team, and Doug Rogers leads that, and I think certainly we need to report back to the committee. We're certainly supportive because the team are pretty passionate about the bus service themselves, so I think there's some really common goals in there and we just need to work together. So let's gather that information and come back to council in the near future with some suggestions going forward.
Councillor Lush, last question.
Yeah, look, I love the fact that you've come in here and talked about the bus stops, and you had quite a simple proposal that you want 2 bus stops to do it. Just talking about you at Aurora, how many pupils catch the bus, and does the bus service work for you, and have you got a bus shelter right outside school that's functional?
So in regards to how many kids catch the bus, we have multiple actual school buses, and then there's kids who catch the town buses.
I'm talking about the regular public service, yeah.
Public service. I'm not sure about the Newfield bus, as that stops on the other side of the school. However, the Kingswell that I used to take had, on average, I would say 15-ish kids.
And was reliable?
No, it was late. It wasn't. The bus. Whatever the website's called, the bus tracker that says it's coming at 3:30. No, it's not. It's coming at 3:35. It's coming at 3:40. It's coming whenever it comes, really.
Okay.
Yeah, if it comes, because there has been a few times where it just hasn't showed up until the next bus route time, and it's like we sit there from 3. So we sit there before the 3:30 bus even leaves the bus hub. So how are we missing the bus unless the bus just decided not to go out that time?
Really appreciate your passion, but we are just really need to wrap this up a wee bit. But I think just very last question quickly.
Just quickly, well, I'm very embarrassed to say that I have got no idea what proportion of bus stops have or have not got covers. And I just wondered whether you had actually done a kind of a stock take, or whether maybe Russell has any idea, would be 50-50 or 10-1 or...
I used to know.
The what, sorry?
I used to know, but I have forgotten recently. I think it's about 1/3 of the bus stops have shelters in order of cost, in order of numbers, roughly.
Excellent. Well, thank you very, very much. I think Stacey, I see him sitting up the back there. You may be able to provide Councillor Dermody with that Breaking Barriers report, because that had the conversation in around how youth do actually want to travel, which may answer your question there, Councillor Dermody. But thank you 3 very much, and everyone else in the public gallery, for coming and speaking to us today and supporting our rangatahi in Invercargill. We will get a report back to consider your presentation, and we will obviously be letting you know. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Next on our agenda, we have the minutes of the joint Invercargill and Gore joint hearings for curbside waste minutes held on the 26th of November last year. Are there any questions to those minutes? I'll move them. Seconded by Councillor De Vries. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Next, we have the minutes of infrastructure and growth from the 2nd of December. Are there any questions to those? Thank you for moving, Councillor Ludlow. Seconded, Councillor De Vries. Any queries on that? No. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
And tab 6, noting Councillor De Vries' conflict here. Are you choosing, is it a conflict or an interest? Are you choosing not to vote?
I prefer not to vote.
Cool. So just noting
Chair,
that.
given that this is an annual event and we're not seeing any change to what's proposed, Doug?
Through you, Chair, Councillor's correct. It is an annual event and there's very little change. We'll await the temporary traffic control application and we'll work through that.
Move the 3 recommendations.
Seconded, moved Councillor Ludlow, seconded Councillor Bond. All those in favour?
Aye.
Very quick, that one. I would say that I...
Well said, Doug.
Yeah, well said.
Well done.
Also,
See
I
you
really
next
did
year.
appreciate seeing the traffic management control piece. And we have tab 7, which is the Southern Greenway road stopping and exchange of land. And we have Heather here this afternoon to talk us through that.
Thank you, Chair. You'll note there's been a bit of a delay from when this was brought to Council 20 years ago. It's been delayed from quite some time ago before that as well. The delay was in getting some response from the late submitter as to whether or not they wished to present to council at any stage, and Mr Pearson had repeatedly tried to contact them with no result. So we have presented the paper based on the fact that we accept the late submission, or the council accept the late submission, noting that we don't consider it as an objection to the road stopping process. The full list of the submitters have been in there. There were 2 submissions initially received as objections, and following discussion with those 2 submitters regarding the purpose and reason behind the road stopping and exchange, they are comfortable with withdrawing their objections, so we've received no objections in terms of the road stopping process. Any questions?
All right, we have recommendations before
Sorry,
us.
Alex.
Oh,
Was I able to ask a question?
yeah, of course.
Yes, sorry. I've had a read through of the submissions, and there seemed to be quite a lot of confusion in them, and I was wondering if we're practicing really clear, plain language in the letters that we're sending out to the affected residents or anyone that needs to make an objection.
So anyone that had through the chair, anyone that had a query, we followed up with every submission we received and spoke to every individual submitter. So yes, there potentially was. It was such a big, wide parcel of land that was there. It was very difficult to put that onto one piece of paper. So anything that came through with either a submission or a query, we followed up directly with each individual submitter.
Sorry, just supplementary to that, which I thought was fantastic that we were able to give that level of service back to people that were interested in it. But what I was unsure of was the information provided really clear in the first place, and are we practicing plain language principles when we're communicating with members of the community about these major, well, about any changes?
Through the chair, I think there is a copy of the actual submission over the information that went out. Mr Pearson may be able to answer that a little bit more.
Through the chair, we try to have that conversation, and although that often we have to refer to the legislation, we try to make sure it is really simple, and more often than not we would have a picture with it, because I think sometimes that tells us the 1,000 words, and so I think we are trying, definitely, and you are correct, at times it does sound a little bit jargony, but some of that's needed. It's not too many words, and sometimes a good picture helps us.
I'm satisfied. Excellent. Were there any further questions to that? No, I just wanted to note that, and thank you very much for providing the example of the letter, because I had a similar question around it as Councillor De Vries, and the example of the signage notification on the land. But I did note that on said signage, the key was supposed to show the exchange of land. So you can see the piece, and this is on page 96 of Board Books. You can see the blue area is the key for the area to be taken as road, and then there is the exchange piece that is meant to, I guess, be displayed, so you're actually going to get to see what's swapped. I think I did a wee Google and saw the piece that will be swapped, but it's just not displayed there on that sheet, and I wondered if there may have been a wee bit of confusion around that. But I'm sure we can improve those going forward. The recommendations that we have in front of us at the moment is to obviously receive the report and accept the late submission, and then we're recommending through to council, subject to the Ministry of Land's approval, pursuant to 116 and 117 of the Public Works Act, that we authorise the stopping of the portion of road, making them available for exchange effectively. And under delegated authority tab 4 there, or recommendation 4 there. Does anybody have any objections to that? No? Anyone happy to move? Thank you, Councillor Ludlow. Seconded, Councillor De Vries. All those in favour?
Aye.
Wow, excellent to get that tied up, considering it was started in 2006. Thank you very much, Heather. Alrighty, and tab 8, last tab on the public agenda this afternoon, we have the Infrastructure PMO Capital Projects Report, and I believe we have Bruce. No?
Yes, yep. Yep.
Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. Look, I propose that the capital report at large is taken as read, but I'll give a couple of updates from 2 strategic projects that are nearing completion. So firstly, there is the Branksholme water main. So that was commissioned and operational last October. We're just closing out and addressing some minor defects with the main contractor, just some areas of sealing and some grassing to some parts. It's all manageable and in play, and essentially that at the end of that we'll be in a position to award practical completion. And this month we're also targeting to reach a final account position with them. So once we've got that, the project is essentially complete, bar the rest of the defects liability period. The second one there is the Bluff boat ramp, and I'll tie into that the toilet and fish cleaning facility nearby as well. So the ramp was operational last year. The toilet and the fish cleaning area is constructed. If you've been down there recently, you'll see the fencing is around there. That's just so public don't go up and use it. There is a new water connection being installed nearby. We're just waiting the completion of that to be installed. That is planned this week. Then we commission the toilet next week and it'll be operational. I'll also just note next period we'll look to move the water projects to the reporting to the Water Committee, so that'll be the wrap-up of the Branksholme. But I'll also just provide a quick update because it's another key project, the Mercy Street foul sewer. So we did, through the PCG or the Project Control Group, we did decide to undertake some more extensive site investigation and in-ground works. That was a bit of a risk mitigation strategy for in-ground risks. So that was all completed before Christmas. And we're now tracking to complete detailed design in March this year. And then that'll be followed by going out to tender for the main contractor. You may recall last year we have already completed the registration of interest, so we are shortlisted to 5 main contractors to tender to at that point in time. And then lastly, just because it's also a project of interest, is an update on the Watna Clock. So we're planning to present back to Council in April. That'll be with a preliminary design, so that's just further progressing the design that was previously endorsed by Council. But we'll also be bringing back some cost-saving options around some cladding alternatives and cost-saving options. So the idea there is that the Council will be able to make informed decisions with some budgets and some different cladding and finishing options that might bring a more cost-effective solution.
Excellent, thank you very much for that update. Do we have any questions? Councillor Pollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Just carrying on with the Watna Place hole in the ground. Just looking at your columns you've got there for each project, and if you go through them for the clock, it's got estimate to complete $4 million. So, are we serious about this? Is that a real number, or?
No, you'll recall $2 million of that is with the distinction for the costs that is shared with the Distinction Hotel portion of costs. So the budget that got approved for the PMO project is 1.8 mil, 1.98 mil, apologies. Yep.
So has this council actually had the chance to vote whether it wants to proceed with the clock at all? Because it has been a hole in the ground for quite a while now, and that whole area, walking through to the Distinction, walking to Atara around there, I can't see the need for a clock, seriously. And to spend this money, and we've just been talking about not being able to afford traffic lights for precarious pedestrian, crossings. So, I mean, to go ahead with a near $2 million spend on some big edifice, it sounds absolutely stupid. And with rates capping coming, I mean, this is what the government's looking at, is idiotic.
Councillor Pottinger, that's not up for discussion this afternoon.
No, but I'm asking...
Councillor Pottinger, that's not up for discussion this afternoon. When we get the report back, we will be having that debate. And you're very welcome to make sure that you let everybody know how you feel about the clock then. But that's not part of the discussion this afternoon, is whether or not we go ahead with the clock. It's giving an update, letting us know how we are.
I was asking a question.
do you have a question?
Yeah, I asked the question. Were you listening? The question was, why has it not come to council?
No, you can't speak to the chair.
No,
like
sorry,
that.
yeah. No, and it hasn't come to council yet because the cost estimates are still being done, as I understand. So we know that that is coming forward very soon. And I just ask you, as a member of this committee, to hold your questioning and hold your statements of debate until we have that paper in front of us, because then we have all of the information. Were there any further questions?
I just want to make a point of order. I mean, I don't think someone can talk to the chair like that around, are you listening? So I think you need to apologise.
I think, Mr Dermody, you just refrain and learn about council before making comments like
Right,
that.
okay. I would appreciate the apology, Councillor Pottinger. We will talk offline. All right. You can see there that we have the PMO report here. Does anybody have any further questions on any other part of the report? No? Well, thank you very much this afternoon, Bruce. That brings us to the end of the public part.
With the recommendations, Chair.
Oh, sorry, we didn't move them. We will move those recommendations. There's nothing else there that we've had no changes. I'm happy to move those. Anyone to second those? Councillor Ludlow, all those in favour?
Aye.
Carried, and that now brings us to the end of the public portion of our meeting this afternoon. Can I have somebody to move us into public excluded for the reasons outlined in the agenda there? Thank you, Councillor De Vries, seconded by Mayor Campbell. All those in favour? And we will now close off the live stream. Thank you, everybody.